How many of you ever felt completely alone? And last, how many of you ever felt like you were never good enough? Type 3 in the chat box. Thank you. I felt this way every single day of my life as a kid. And at 2 years old, my mother moved in with my stepfather. He had 2 sons. One was my age. Unfortunately, when he was 2 years old, he got attacked by a wolf. It completely mutilated his face, ripped off his scalp. It even took one of his ears. This is a trauma that nobody should ever go through, no less a 2-year-old. From this event, he became extremely vicious and mean. And me being half his size, he took every ounce of his aggression out on me. He never missed the opportunity to physically, mentally, or emotionally abuse me. And because of this, at 10 years old, I started smoking and drinking on a daily basis. By high school, I did just about every drug you could think of, and I was selling drugs just to get by. See, this made me feel normal. In high school, I felt like the man. I had all the money a 14-year-old should ever have. I had all the friends, all the women, all the so-called respect you can ever ask for. I learned how to cut every corner in life. But little did I know, the only thing I was cutting short was myself. When I started high school, I was in the honors class. I was an all-star football player, an all-star baseball player. But by the time I graduated, I got through by the skin of my teeth. I watched all my friends go away to their dream colleges, while I had to stay home and go to a local one. This is when the resentment really started happening for myself. And at 18 years old, I got hit by a bus. I injured my neck and my back, and I got severely addicted to painkillers. This is when my whole life started to fall apart. I started to get arrested all the time. I got into debt with somebody who wanted to kill me. I lost every real friend I ever had, every relationship. I felt completely worthless. Eventually, I ended up homeless. I had to move back in with my father. It was completely humiliating. He let me stay for about 6 months until he gave me an ultimatum. He said, "Kev, either get help or get out." Me being all prideful, I chose to leave. I packed up all my stuff in a book bag, grabbed my safe, I threw it on my shoulder, and I stormed out the house. I walked a mile in the freezing cold in a tank top and shorts with a safe on my shoulder with tears streaming down my face. When I got to my best friend's house, I convinced his mother that he hated me, that he no longer loved me, and then I got kicked out and I had nowhere to go. She let me stay. She cooked me a bowl of macaroni and cheese that night I'll never forget, because it should have been the last meal of my life. Everybody woke up, but they woke up to me on the floor, face down in my vomit, blue, completely unresponsive. The next thing I knew was I was waking up in the hospital 3 weeks later. The first thing that I seen was my mother's and my father's face, crying hysterical. They looked like they aged 10 years since the last time I seen them. This is the most guilt and shame I've ever felt in my whole life. I tried to gather what was going on. I realized I overdosed. I was in a coma for 3 weeks. I died 3 times in that hospital. In fact, on the last time, it got so bad, they had a priest come in and read me my last rites. I'd hear the doctors say the things to my parents like, "He's not going to make it through the night. You better make arrangements." My parents were in complete denial. They're like, "Don't talk about my son like that. You don't know him. He's strong. You'll see." They look at him like they were crazy. They're like, "You don't understand. He had multi-organ failure. His liver, kidneys, lungs, heart, brain completely shut down. He has 108 fever right now. His brain is frying. If he survives, he's going to be a complete vegetable. He's never going to be the son you once knew." He's going to lose all 4 of his limbs and be completely brain dead. You're going to have to bathe him, feed him, wipe him for the rest of his life. Whew. When I heard this was worse than death to me. This is when I started to pray. I started praying to a God I didn't even believe in. Please, God, give me a second chance. If you get me out of this, I promise I'll change. I'll promise I'll make a difference. Just give me one more shot. I begged and pleaded for weeks on end. No response. Until one day, the doctor came in and said, Kevin, I have some good news and I have some bad news. The good news is, I think you're going to make it. I think you're out of the woods. The bad news is, we're going to have to take your leg or you're going to die. When I heard this, every emotion you could possibly think of ran through my head. Anger, frustration, resentment, guilt, shame. Every question you could possibly ask yourself. What was I going to do for the rest of my life? How was I going to make money? What girl was going to want to marry a man with one leg when there are literally billions walking around with 2? Now, although I felt all of these emotions, there was one emotion that I had to hold on to the tightest. That was the emotion of gratitude. Being grateful I was still alive. See, I battled in that hospital for 4 months, not knowing if I was going to live or die. I couldn't breathe on my own. They had me under breathing machines. They would lower the oxygen just low enough so I would struggle for each breath, but just high enough so I wouldn't die. It was like being waterboarded. It was torture. I went through so much in that hospital. But what I did learn is no matter what your circumstances are, your support system is your number one asset in life. Because when your back's up against the wall and you have no other options, it's your support system that's going to get you through.